Welcome to Biota Live. I'm Tom Barbalet, and this is being recorded live on TalkShoe April 8th, 2011. Biota Live is a continuation of Biota Podcasts. For more information on the Biota Podcasts, check out biota.org/podcast. And it has been an extraordinarily long time since I last recorded a Biota Live, but I wanted to get back in the swing of things because I've received a lot of positive commentary associated with folks who have either recently discovered the Biota Live podcasts or have been missing Biota Live recently. And for folks who aren't subscribed to the feed, there has actually been a lot of additional stuff going in the feed audio, which means that I don't have to actually update the front of the site, but folks subscribed on iTunes or subscribed via another favorite podcatcher, you will be able to listen to a conversation with Steve Grand. I think there's a Bob Mottram conversation, and of course a conversation between Bruce Damer and I recorded on location at Bruce's farm, which was really a pleasure. In fact, my mind constantly goes wandering back to those times out in the Bay Area. I don't even know how long ago it was. It was probably about 7 weeks ago now. But anyway, lots of bits and pieces of news and notes. My hope is that we will actually have some folks calling in tonight. But if we don't have folks calling in, we'll just do it as a monologue. I'm not particularly fussed by that. So the next show will be recorded on April 22nd at 8 p.m. Pacific. We don't have a guest. We don't have a topic. But I'm just going to start periodically recording Biota Lives probably once every 2 weeks, with the view that, as folks have done previously, if they have artificial life-related topics, they'll typically get the idea that, Biota Live has started again, and there is a kind of open mic if folks want to get involved and talk about their projects or talk about various ideas or, kind of compare the strange kind of editorial stuff that went into a number of Biota podcasts, but I'll talk about that a bit in a while. So folks may remember that there's an ongoing project associated with getting the Biota podcasts out in transcript form. And this is actually to produce a series of relatively small softcover books that can be picked up by universities or independently artificial life interested folk, basically in some regard a kind of stark contrast to academic publishing, but also getting the ideas out from the Biota podcast to a wide variety of folk in a format which may be more applicable to them, i.e. via paper or electronic book. And this is a project that's really been a labour of love for the past, maybe 6 or 7 months for me. However, I have encountered a small problem, and I don't necessarily think this is associated with burnout, but the fellow who was doing the transcriptions for me has pretty well gone missing in action. So I wanted to put out to the community, I'm willing to pay roughly $30 an hour, that's per hour of audio, in terms of transcribing fee. There are a wide variety of transcription sites available online, all these kind of things, but I'd much rather put it out to the community because I understand that there are a wide variety of folk who listen to the Biota podcast who are students and these kind of things, and I just want to put it out there. I guess the method I would probably use is use an iPod or some audio program like Audacity, slow it down a little bit and just start typing, because I think ultimately that is the way the transcripts are going to be done, and worst comes to worst, I will probably actually have to invest my own time in doing the transcribing. So I have 3 podcasts transcribed, and I have a need for probably between, 2 and 7 more, depending on how things go. So if you are interested in assisting with the transcriptions, tom@nobleape.com, that's my email address. Please do get in contact, because I am interested in getting these transcripts out in a form that obviously a wide variety of folk will be able to utilize, both in terms of reference material, in terms of searchability, but also just outreach to the community, basically, because I think there are a number of academics who would like to use elements of the Biota podcast, and certainly a number of students who would like to use elements of the Biota podcast, but unfortunately they just don't have access to it in text form. So that was the motivation associated with the transcripts. I've had a lot of positive responses, certainly from the previous participants that do want to see their audio out in text form as well. So that is an ongoing project, but does require someone to assist with the transcription. So if that person is you, please get in contact with me, tom@nobleape.com. Well, as I noted, initially I'm refloating the Biota Live format after about, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 months off. And the real background to this has been feedback from folks such as Bob Mottram and others in the community who really are missing the Biota Live format, and particularly the editorialization of a variety of different ideas and concepts. Bob referenced in particular the stuff that we had talked about associated with prizes and Project Lifeboat, and I think that's certainly something that personally, there are so many things that kind of vein into the artificial life community that I think are, worth editorializing, let's just put it that way, worth talking about maybe in a slightly critical light, and certainly I haven't had any problems in the past in terms of maintaining the editorial independence of Biota Live as a podcast, and certainly putting out a variety of ideas that folks seem to have been receptive to. So really what I want to do is just keep these recordings once every other week, with the view that if folks are working on projects, if they do want to have their stuff out there, news and notes, these kind of things, they can get in contact with me. And although I'm returning to the 8 p.m. Friday evening, 8 p.m. Pacific time, I'm more than happy to do recordings at other times, particularly for folks in Europe or Australia or a wide variety of parts of the world, although currently the time is very compatible with Australia and Southeast Asia and all these kind of areas. So, I think the time shouldn't necessarily be set in stone, and certainly the previous Biota Lives that have been recorded on a Saturday morning, for example, have always yielded some interesting discussion and, a different crowd, basically. So I'm more than happy to actually change the recording time, particularly if there are folks who want to participate, but this time is just prohibitive. So if you have a topic that you want to talk on, or if you want to highlight or showcase your project, then please do email me if this current time is not compatible. I would prefer to return to the live format in terms of allowing folks to get in the chat and ask questions and these kind of things. And certainly recently I'm trying to think, I think possibly Jeff Clune was kind of the beginning of the end of some of the live format because we had just so many problems. But now I'm using TalkShoe directly. I'm not even using the telephone system as a means of getting to TalkShoe. This format seems to work quite well. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the successes that I've had with another podcast that's utilised this format in a little bit. So folks may remember freshsim.org was the request for a kind of community forum site, and Mira Karpish, Tim Pickup, a wide variety of other folk, but Mira and Tim were really the central figures, and a little bit from me in terms of just providing the hosting and some of the feedback and general advice associated with the community. But FreshSim seems to have slowed down a little bit in terms of the kind of commentary that's on there. Miro had been seeding the site with a variety of conference announcements and other things on there, but really a community site needs a community in order to participate in and do some of the driving and discussion. And I'm just as guilty as anyone in terms of actually spending time on there. I try to get there maybe once every other week and do some posting and some cleanup and this kind of stuff. But I think if there were more folk going through FreshSim, there would probably be, it's kind of a snowball effect basically in terms of getting folk interested and involved. So if you are artificial life passionate, and if you are listening to this podcast, you probably fit into that group, please do check out FreshSim, FreshSim.org, because that was really a response to a community request associated with there being Artificial Life Forum. And shout-outs to Miro and Tim in particular for doing phenomenal work. I know Miro is also working on the Evo Grid currently. I wanted to just mention the Evo Grid, actually, because Bruce is getting to the final phases of actually submitting his PhD. And I think will be interesting. We've been discussing over the past week, working out really the history of the Evo Grid as a kind of form, and also the legacy of the Biota podcasts as kind of contributive influence to that form. And I think the thing that I pointed out to Bruce in particular was that if you go back even to the early Biota Live discussions, Biota Live 2, 9, 10, these kind of episodes, they all related to the Evo Grid, and they all related to Bruce's, floating the Evo Grid through the Biota Live format. And I think what will be particularly interesting in the next 6 to 8 months as the PhD goes through its final kind of throes is what actually happens to the Evo Grid as a project following the PhD. And from my perspective, certainly the discussion that we've given on Biota Live has been associated with, I don't know, summoning the Evo grid, I think was the terminology that I used, but I'm very interested to see what actually happens after the PhD in terms of the Evo grid as a particular form. I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about this open podcast format, and there are a number of folks who are in the chat currently who are actually connected with another one of my podcasts. And the history of my podcasting, I'm coming up to, this is my, I think, fifth or maybe even sixth year of podcasting, 2006. So this is my fifth calendar year of podcasting. And really, Biota Live was a test bed for this live open format. And certainly early on, Biota Live kind of picked up momentum. We had a lot of folks that were involved on a regular basis and really built the recording up to what it was in terms of both constructive dialogue and also just really interesting discussion. And this is something that I followed through a number of other podcasts, a number of other genres, just to see if there were other areas out there that would benefit from this kind of open discussion. And also with the view that maybe there would be slightly larger communities out there that could benefit from this. So with my own musings and kind of general eclectic interests, I have a wide variety of podcasts that I listen to through iTunes. And one of the genres that I had been listening to that I thought was really distinctly missing some of this Biota Live format associated with the topic of model rail. Now, I've joked on the previous shows with Gerald de Jong associated with model railroading. I don't want to editorialize too much associated with that particular hobby, except to say that there are a number of folks who listen to Biota Live that were also model railroaders, and there is actually quite a significant Venn. I guess if you understand the idea of kind of creating perfect little universes and then seeing how things run within those universes, this is basically describing both artificial life and model railroading fundamentally. So I started Model Rail Radio about less than 2 years ago now, just like this, just with a monologue. And from that, the show has grown phenomenally. In fact, I think probably the model railroading community is at least 2 orders of magnitude larger than the artificial life community, if not 3 or possibly even 4 orders of magnitude. But I have used Model Rail Radio as almost a test bed associated with this kind of open mic discussion. To give some introduction to the format, we now record on average 5-hour-long shows through TalkShoe, and we have just about 16,000 listeners. We probably will break 16,000 quite comfortably this month. So that has not necessarily been in contrast to Biota Live, but has actually shown me that this kind of open mic live podcasting format really has a lot of legs in a lot of different directions. And I'm very pleased to say that I am maintaining the independence of Model Rail Radio as well. In the past couple of weeks, I've actually knocked back sponsors for the show because I just like to, keep it open, very similar to what I've done with Biota Live. And also, I think the phenomena of growth that I've experienced with Model Rail Radio would probably be stifled by advertising. So the experience that I've had with Model Rail Radio basically also gives a thumbs up to Biota Live and means that the Biota Live format will kind of continue on as it has up until now. I'm not expecting to have thousands of listeners, although we have had a couple of thousand on a few of the podcasts. And the beauty of podcasting as well is these shows all have long tails, which means that folks can come to the Biota recordings 2, 3, 5 years' time and thankfully still get access to it thanks to the Internet Archive. So I have received quite a bit of feedback from people associated with what they would like to hear in future Biota Lives. And one of those pieces of feedback, which has actually come from a number of parties, is inviting on the authors in the Artificial Life Journal to participate in Biota Lives. Now, this is something that I actually want to do because I think the Artificial Life Journal is going through some interesting throes currently. It seems to be getting thinner and thinner for a start. But also, I think the kind of contemporary narrative associated with academic artificial life versus the strong kind of hobbyist contingent that has always been actively participating in Biota Lives in the past is something that I wanted to just introduce in terms of the academic community to a lot of the energy and a lot of the legacy that has come through the Biota community. So I will start actually doing that. I will start contacting the folks who have participated in the Artificial Life Journal to see if we can get them on in Biota Live. There was some discussion a couple of years ago with me producing an alife.org podcast in parallel to Biota Live, and certainly as recent weeks and months will show, basically my time is just precious. So unfortunately, well, that's not really the truth. The truth is I have very limited time. The preciousness of my time is neither here nor there. So, yeah, I think that's something that will be coming in future episodes potentially. I mean, obviously it needs the folks who are in the journal to be wanting to participate. I have had some problems in the past with that. But, yeah, I think the Artificial Life Journal folk will open up some of the academic discussions and also probably broaden some of the hobbyist questions into contemporary artificial life academia. So that's certainly something that I'm interested in pursuing, and thanks to the folks who emailed me with that piece of advice in particular, because it certainly echoes my own thinking. Another thing that I really like doing with Biota Live, and aside from all the editorial stuff and bringing people together for heated discussions and all those kind of things, was the ability for people to talk about their projects. And certainly my own experience in the past year has been about taking aspects of contributions, source code contributions, Bob Mottram's source code contribution in particular to Noble Ape, and just looking at how I can understand that and how I can generate tools in order to understand what I was calling the social graph element to the Noble Ape simulation. I wouldn't necessarily say that code contribution is a double-edged sword, but it really does put you on your toes when you get such a substantial and such an amazing contribution of code, particularly then because within the code itself there's actually a lot of underlying understanding. And I think that's something that really struck me with Bob Mottram's changes in particular, was that I needed a new kind of software in order to actually understand the interaction, in particular the graphical interaction, the population interaction, the various what I call metrics that exist within the simulation now. And a lot of that is graphical analysis, a lot of that is various algorithms in order to analyze the data, and also just ways of quantizing the data, because ultimately, ideally, these metrics would actually have some kind of quantized measurement associated with them. So yes, some development in that regard with Noble Ape. I'm actually waiting for a computer upgrade to do a major rewrite. But yeah, I think the funny thing about developing the Noble Ape simulation over all these years is that there's always work to be done, irrespective of whether I'm using 10-year-old laptops or my Mac Mini, which is now 5 years old. Yes, aging computing, aging computation, which has really been the legacy of the Noble Ape simulation. In addition to this, I'm also following the same mantra that I'm putting out there associated with Biota transcripts with my own Noble Ape writing. Now, the primary Noble Ape writing is the original manuals, which have been referenced previously on podcasts in terms of things that have not been read by Bruce Damer and others. But I wanted to put out the original manuals very similar to what I'm discussing with the Biota transcripts in a format that would be relatively cheap, available in paper and electronic copy, and just something that was, a no-brainer, basically, when folks were on Amazon or things like that, just to pick up for, what I'm hoping will be the right price, or as close to the right price as possible. My view is, my aim is to get it under $10, although these kind of things are always difficult to actually swing, because there are so many, unknown factors when one even starts this process. So my hope is to at least get it cheaper than the last version, which was on Cafe Press for $15, and I think the electronic version will be considerably cheaper. The paper version, unfortunately, always has certain elements. But my hope is to actually get that out this weekend, although it may be a couple more weekends. You may hear my voice, actually. I'm rather congested currently with seasonal allergies, as they call them in Las Vegas. But yes, once this writing is out, I have a second piece of writing that I wanted to get out on Noble Ape specifically, and this really builds on the last conversation that I had with Dave Kerr, associated with just turning artificial life into fiction, into science fiction, into near fiction, into all these kind of things, creating, I guess, not necessarily a positive external understanding of artificial life, but at least showing a broader community that, artificial life simulation isn't just about things that are, taking over the world, or all these kind of horrendous approaches that typically mischaracterize both artificial life simulation in general and also artificial life developers. Through the recordings recently, I appeared on Talk Radio as well in Salt Lake City, Utah, talking about Noble Ape specifically, but also the broader issues associated with the technical singularity and, machines taking over the world and all this kind of stuff. And really, I'm thinking a lot more about how we can take elements of this Biota discussion, because really, Biota Live, and certainly Bruce Damer has utilized it as a laboratory with the Evo grid, and in my case, I've utilized Biota Live as a means of kind of constructing a unified artificial life social theory almost. So all these things have kind of come together through Biota Lives previously, and I'm hoping to utilize them going forward. Anyway, I think this is probably going to be a short Biota Live this evening. I had promised to maintain the recording for some time, but as folks may hear, seasonal allergies are rather heavy, and this was going to be the first Biota Live recording after a relatively long hiatus. But I wanted to start the format again. I wanted to get folks back in the conversation. I wanted to remind people, basically, with a certain degree of periodicity, which is the nature of these Biota Live recordings, that the Artificial Life community is still out there. We may be going through a winter. The Artificial Life journal may be shrinking in size, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Artificial Life developers, folks that hold a particular passion associated with these topics, expert users, and just folks that casually listen into Biota Live, are not without the need to actually have a frequent podcast. And apologies to everyone for the delays in podcasts recently. I've been doing a lot of writing, and I'm going to be doing a lot of work on Noble Ape in the near future, but I understand that these podcasts are critical. And really, I've got to give thanks to the community for giving me that feedback, and that Biota Live isn't an optional extra, it's a necessity with the current Artificial Life community. And I'd really like to thank folks who have contacted me and have said that recently, because certainly it's motivated me starting these recordings again, and also maintaining these recordings even in a monologue format. Anyway, the next show will be on April 22nd at 8 p.m. Pacific. We don't have a topic currently. If you'd like to suggest a topic, please contact me, tom@nobleape.com. We do have the Biota Conversations mailing list and also the Biota announcements list. The Conversations mailing list has gone through some changes. Once you subscribe, or if you have an existing subscription, the lists part, so it used to be biota_conv at lists.ccon.org. The lists part of that has been removed now. Bruce Damer has changed the server. So it is just biota_conv at ccon.org. And please do start posting again on the Biota Conversations mailing list as this winter phenomena has expanded. Obviously, there's been some kind of drop in the discussion, although I have seen Eric Burton posting recently. And Eric, the show is always open for your particular discussion point. It was rather curious, actually, to find myself in a YouTube clip as a kind of, I don't know, a cyberpunk journalist almost, which was really quite fun. Please feel free to remix Biota Live trance, techno, hard house recordings. I'm more than happy to be vocally sampled on the dance floor. It's always a privilege. And, it's good to get the information out there. So anyway, this is Tom Bartley, Las Vegas, Nevada. A relatively short Biota Live this evening, but just an opportunity to re-energize the community, get a sense that folks are still there, that there's still projects going on. I know a lot of people are having children and things like that, but a lot of us are still writing artificial life simulation, and many of us are still writing academic chapters. I wanted to give a shout-out in particular to Dick Gordon, who I believe is currently in Florida. I'm not really clear, actually, what is going on with the origin of series of books. I've been pinged recently by a couple of people, Bruce Damer included. Oh, and also, I need to send out a congratulations to Liz Swan, who gave birth to a baby boy, I think probably about a week ago now. If I had my wits about me, I would have the name of the baby boy in front of me, but I wanted to congratulate Liz and her husband. We have done a lot of birth announcements through Biota Live previously, but Liz in particular, I understand, is going to be buying some Noble Ape baby wear. So, I guess photos will be forthcoming. But yes, that was one of the large reasons that, I don't know, I think there's always been Noble Ape baby wear, but actually to have a baby wearing Noble Ape baby wear, so much better. And similarly, we've never really floated Biota t-shirts or anything like that. There is a Cafe Press store associated with Biota, but if you would like to get an artificial life-related t-shirt, or if you'd like to promote folks in your general vicinity by wearing such a t-shirt, please let me know. I'll pull one together, cap, what have you, because certainly the promotional effect of t-shirts that I've seen through both the Noble Ape recordings and also through Model Rail Radio has been particularly great, and it's all at cost price through Cafe Press. So no chance of any profiting. Anyway, So this is Tom Bartley in Las Vegas, Nevada. This has been the first Biota Live, but not the last Biota Live for the near future. Next recording will be on April 22nd at 8 p.m. Pacific. Please do consider stopping by the chat because the chat's happening tonight, but it seems to be mainly populated by folks associated with my other podcasting endeavors. But it's always a pleasure to have folks in the chat. Tom Bartley in Las Vegas, Nevada, signing out.